All right, everybody. So Nebraska makes a hire today. And I know I'm getting this news out like a couple of hours late, but it's better to analyze the news than not. So this will be up here on the channel for everybody to analyze. So I'm going to put it up here and people are, going to be able to view it. It's Glenn Thomas. Glenn Thomas is now going to be very new staff hire, pretty important hire. Glenn Thomas is going to be now working with quarterbacks. And this is interesting because, Nebraska fans they've been clamoring for a coach to be working exclusively with quarterback. And Marcus Satterfield last year was kind of like being an offensive coordinator. I think that maybe the quarterbacks, I guess that they were kind of with Coach Sat last year. Tight ends coach, I don't believe was much of a factor last year. I know that there was a guy on staff, didn't last long at Nebraska. But now Coach Sat is going to work with the tight ends, and now Glenn Thomas is going to be somebody who has, NFL experience. A guy from middle of Texas, I would say Southwest Texas, like the Panhandle, like you look at Pearland, Texas. That's the hometown of Baron Morton as well, but that's near Lubbock. And he went to Texas Tech, then he went to Midwestern State. He's a coaching lifer. He's 57 years old. He was also with Matt Rhule and I think sat at Baylor when Baylor's offense started to get it rolling, and then also when he was in the NFL under Mike Smith, and when Mike Smith ended up parting ways or when Dan Quinn came into Atlanta in 2015 or 2014, Glenn Thomas was not retained, so then Matt Rhule hired him at Temple. All right, so I'll tell you the positives of this move, and then I'll tell you my honest opinion and some maybe concerns. So Glenn Thomas is somebody that's a coaching veteran. So the positives is that he's a coaching veteran and he's worked with Matt Rhule at multiple spots. He gets along with Matt Rhule. He knows Matt Rhule. He knows the standard for success, which is absolutely incredibly important when you are coaching with Matt Rhule, I guess, is staff continuity. It could be a good thing, but it also can be a negative thing. And the negative part is that even though he's worked with Matt Rhule at Baylor and also at Temple, it's sometimes you want to have new ideas be exposed to you. Sometimes you don't want to have an echo chamber of thoughts. You want to have somebody with outside opinion. And I looked at the Pittsburgh Steelers offense where he was at. He did have Kenny Pickett. He didn't have the best quarterbacks, Mason Rudolph. He did happen to have really talented wide receivers. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Austin, Freiermuth, Jalen Warren, and Najee Harris are talented offensive players. They just need a quarterback there, and I think interesting scheme there. He was with Matt Canada, so he got to see a little bit of turmoil there, and then the offense changed around second part of the season, right? Second part of the season there in Pitt. So, he also was at Arizona State under tumultuous circumstances with Herm Edwards the year prior. Antonio Pierce was also on that Herm Edwards staff. Guy who's been around football a really long time. So I think he's, an extra guy, an extra set of eyes in the coaching room and can exclusively help quarterbacks. So that's really, really good. All right. I think that the move is fine. Okay. It's fine. But I look at Nebraska, and first of all, I like them getting the Wyoming/Texas wide receiver. All right. I really like how Nebraska, they got Dante Dowdle out of the portal. So I like how they're getting a couple of weapons now at wide receiver, and they're trying to develop the young core. I just think Nebraska, they're paying Tony White $1.6 million. There's offensive coordinators now because of Nick Saban retiring and the coaching carousel taking wild turns. There's a couple of unbelievable offensive coordinators that are out there. Maybe it's unrealistic, but I believe that if Ryan Grubb were paid about $3 or $4 million, and maybe you'd up Tony White's salary, if you had Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator for Washington, as Nebraska's offensive coordinator, and Marcus Satterfield can be your tight ends coach, and Marcus Satterfield can learn with Grubb and can be a really solid, great assistant coach, I think that Satterfield would stay loyal to Matt Rhule in that process. The thing I like about Matt Rhule is that Matt Rhule at Carolina, he tried to take risks with his quarterbacks and also with his play callers. Okay, Joe Brady from LSU was a guy that ended up being a young offensive coordinator. Maybe wasn't ready for the NFL in terms of NFL offenses, and neither was Matt Rhule. So that partnership didn't really work out that well. And Teddy Bridgewater was there at quarterback, never had an elite level guy. Now you're seeing Joe Brady with Josh Allen. He took over for Ken Dorsey. Joe Brady's doing a nice job with the Buffalo Bills. Also, Matt Rhule had the foresight to bring in Baker Mayfield. Now it didn't work. Didn't have great weapons, didn't work, still was kind of recovering from Cleveland letting go of Baker Mayfield. But now Baker Mayfield, as time has gone on, he's had a resurgence. He's probably up there for a candidate for NFL Comeback Player of the Year. He's probably on a short list with Joe Flacco and Damar Hamlin, and he's had a really nice bounce-back season. So it should give Matt Rhule some confidence that, hey, look at Carolina now, look at what a dumpster fire it was with Frank Reich. They even brought in Bryce Young, who was the best college quarterback, went into the NFL, and now look at Carolina, dumpster fire. But what I'm saying is that Ryan Grubb, and also you can look at even Tommy Rees, these are rising stars as offensive coordinators. And Marcus Satterfield has never lit it up as an offensive coordinator. Now, for Matt Rhule, he has Dylan Raiola as a quarterback. Dylan Raiola can hit explosive plays like Michael Penix in Washington did. Matt Rhule has never had a quarterback kind of like Dylan. I don't think he's ever had at the college or NFL level a bona fide, talented five-star quarterback with this type of arm strength that can create these explosive plays. So it's an interesting fit. He's always kind of had your Kyle McCords or PJ Walkers, guys that don't turn it over, Charlie Brewer, quarterbacks that are, going to hit the intermediate, hit the underneath stuff, and try not to turn it over. That's always kind of been his MO at quarterback. But when you have Dylan Raiola and Tony White, when you have these two guys in your organization, Tony White, we know, has actually been a spectacular hire from Syracuse. When you nail that hire, when you have this defense coming back, when you have this easy schedule, this is a time for Nebraska to actually rise with Dylan Raiola. The schedule is easy to start off the season. And that's why I want a terrific offensive coordinator. And I think that like a Ryan Grubb would be entertained by Nebraska because guess what? He gets to kind of run his own show. I know he loves Kalen DeBoer. He's also from South Dakota originally, so he would go back to Nebraska, which is close to South Dakota. Nebraska does have money pouring in for you're paying like $150 million for a new facility. $5 million of that should go to your coordinator because a coordinator is like the most important position it's the most important coach in football, I can argue. Yeah, the head coach for recruiting and everything is incredibly important, but that position coach, man, that offensive coordinator, like Ryan Grubb or Tommy Rees with this type of offense, Grubb would be even better because he's older and there's hesitancy for him to be hired off. But I think that Tony White, one more year, he's going to be hired away. You almost saw that happen this year. Dylan Raiola is that special. Just watching all of his highlight tapes and seeing him and seeing him speak and the way he was trained, the guy has the most talent at quarterback in a really, really long time. He would be the number one quarterback maybe in the past couple of cycles as well. I know Caleb Williams is that good. But Dylan Raiola, you really have a special talent. You're going into the Big Ten Conference. The reason why TCU didn't last at the top was because they weren't in the Power 5 league. If Nebraska is able to compete and maybe win a Big Ten championship, the money that you pay out for a Tony White and for a Ryan Grubb, if he were to come in, the money would come back tenfold, and then you would have more money in your athletic department to then sustain the product. Dylan Raiola can be something that can sustain Nebraska football, can take Nebraska football instead of playing in a bowl game like it's 7 wins, which, again, you have to take steps. But with Dylan Raiola, you eventually want to surround him with the talent to succeed. And knowing Dylan and his competitive nature, he's going to wait about a couple of years, and he's going to want to see the fruits of his labor pay off in the first 2 years, or else he's going to bounce and ball out somewhere and get to the league. So actually, time is of the essence in this ever fast-moving world in general, but really in college football too. You have to consider these things. I guess maybe it's pipe dream stuff, but Glenn Thomas, how are you going to hate it? The guy worked with Matt Rhule. The guy gives Marcus Satterfield time to work with the tight ends, develop Fedoni. I think Borkacher's coming back. And then I guess it's a safety net for if Satterfield doesn't get this offense rolling, Glenn Thomas can maybe take over midway through the year. For Dylan Raiola, it is actually really good because this guy has worked with Matt Ryan in Atlanta. He has worked with Mike Tomlin and tons of veterans. Herm Edwards, veteran, great coach. Antonio Pierce, who's probably going to be an NFL head coach soon. A lot of great influences, of course, around this hire. All righty, guys. So, Pearl, Texas. Glenn Thomas. Glenn Thomas joining the Huskers. Thank you guys for watching the channel. Means a lot. And thank you guys.